The plane went silent at 30,000 feet until a girl in row 17 took the pilot's seat. Have you ever been on a flight where the hum of the engines was the only comfort in the sky, where every passenger trusted that two unseen professionals at the front were guiding them safely to their destination? Now imagine that silence shattering, not with turbulence, not with an announcement, but with the sudden, terrifying realization that no one was in control of the plane. That's exactly what happened on Flight 227. At 30,000 feet, the jet fell silent, passengers panicked, and in the middle of chaos, a teenage girl from row 17 did the unthinkable. She walked into the cockpit and took the pilot's seat. Stay with me until the end, because this story will keep you holding your breath. And before we dive in, make sure you subscribe for more incredible stories like this one. It was a routine morning departure from Dallas to Chicago. Families with children settled in, businessmen loosened their ties, and tourists pressed their faces to the windows, excited about their trip. The air buzzed with the chatter of passengers, the occasional ding of the seatbelt sign, and the rhythmic hum of engines, a sound so familiar we almost forget how vital it is. Among them sat Lena Thompson, just 17 years old, traveling alone for the first time. She wore a faded hoodie, her earbuds in, sketchbook on her lap. To the flight attendants, she was just another teenager. To the world, she was invisible. What no one knew was that Lena had grown up in the shadow of airplanes. Her late father had been a flight instructor, and though she had never flown a passenger jet, she had spent years in small cockpits, absorbing lessons most people never heard. The flight lifted smoothly into the clouds. Passengers reclined, ordered drinks, and sank into the lull of air travel. But beneath the calm, fate was quietly rearranging the pieces of an extraordinary story. 2 hours in, everything changed. It started with a ripple, an odd shudder through the cabin. The overhead lights flickered. Then, the unthinkable. The intercom crackled and died. The reassuring hum of the engines faltered, dipping into an eerie silence. At 30,000 feet, the sound of nothing is more terrifying than any thunderclap. Passengers stirred in confusion. Some gasped, others clutched armrests. Flight attendants rushed down the aisles, faces pale, whispering hurriedly to one another. "What's happening?" someone shouted. "Is this normal?" But there was no answer. In row 17, Lena sat frozen, her pulse quickening. She recognized the silence for what it was. Not turbulence, not routine. Something was terribly wrong in the cockpit. Within minutes, panic spread like fire. A businessman stood and demanded answers. A child began crying. Then, the chilling announcement finally came. Not from the captain, but from a trembling flight attendant. "Ladies and gentlemen, both pilots are incapacitated." The words struck like lightning. Gasps, screams, disbelief. A woman fainted. A man gripped his seat so tightly his knuckles turned white. An entire plane full of people realized the nightmare they were living. No one was flying the aircraft. While others panicked, Lena's mind raced. She could almost hear her father's voice. The sky doesn't forgive hesitation. When the moment comes, you act. The flight crew pleaded over the intercom. "If there is anyone on board with flight training, any training at all, please come forward." Silence followed. Passengers looked at one another, wide-eyed, but no one moved. No pilots, no professionals, no saviors. And then, quietly, Lena stood. I can fly." The flight attendant blinked at her, stunned. "You're a child." "I'm 17, Lena said firmly. "And I've trained with my dad for years. I can do this." Desperation leaves no room for doubt. Within minutes, Lena was being led to the cockpit. Passengers craned their necks as she walked past, some whispering prayers, others shaking their heads in disbelief. A teenager? In the pilot's seat? It sounded insane. But insanity was better than surrender. The cockpit smelled of ozone and fear. Both pilots lay unconscious, oxygen masks dangling uselessly. Alarms flashed across the panels, warning of altitude drift. The co-pilot's headset buzzed with unanswered calls from air traffic control. Lena slipped into the captain's seat, her hands trembling as they hovered over controls she had only seen in manuals and simulators. Her father's words echoed again. "The plane is just a bigger bird. Respect it, and it will respect you." She picked up the headset. "This is Lena Thompson. I'm 17. Both pilots are down. I've had training, but never on a jet this size. Please guide me. Silence. Then, a calm voice from the tower. Lena, this is Chicago Center. Copy. Stay calm. We're with you every step. The co-pilot seat remained empty. The weight of hundreds of lives pressed on her shoulders. She swallowed hard and gripped the yoke. The plane drifted. Warning sounds blared. Passengers in the cabin cried out as turbulence hit. Lena fought to steady the jet, remembering her father's lessons. Trust the instruments. Keep your hands steady. The plane wants to fly. Let it. Her palms slick with sweat, she adjusted flaps, corrected pitch, and leveled the aircraft. Air traffic control guided her, speaking slowly, clearly, step by step. Every instruction felt like walking a tightrope between life and death. Good, Lena. You've stabilized. Now prepare for descent. Her heart hammered. She had landed small propeller planes before, but this? A jetliner filled with people, thousands of feet in the air? The weight of it pressed down harder than gravity itself. The city lights sparkled below like a galaxy. Air traffic cleared runways. Emergency crews lined the tarmac. Fighter jets escorted the plane, their pilots astonished when told a teenager was at the controls. Inside the cabin, passengers gripped hands, whispering prayers. Some stared at row 17, now empty, where their unlikely savior had risen. Lena, the controller's voice came. Lower landing gear. Reduce throttle. Keep nose steady. Her fingers shook as she followed commands. The runway grew larger, closer. Adrenaline surged. You can do this, she told herself. For Dad. For them. The wheels screamed against asphalt. The plane lurched violently. Passengers shrieked. For a heart-stopping second, it veered off course. Lena wrestled the controls, muscles burning. Every ounce of her will poured into the yoke. And then, silence broke into thunder. The jet straightened, slowed, rolled to a stop. For a moment, the cabin was frozen in disbelief. Then, cheers, sobs, applause. Strangers embraced. Flight attendants wept. And in the cockpit, Lena slumped forward, tears streaming, whispering, "We did it, Dad." When the doors opened, emergency crews swarmed. The pilots were rushed to hospitals, alive but unconscious from oxygen failure. Reporters gathered, questions flying, but Lena walked out quietly, hood pulled up, trying to vanish into the crowd. She hadn't done it for fame. She hadn't done it for recognition. She had done it because when the sky demanded courage, she had answered. In the days that followed, headlines exploded. Teenager saves 187 lives. News anchors marveled. Aviation experts shook their heads in awe. And pilots across the country tipped their hats to the girl in row 17 who became captain of the sky. But Lena didn't care for the spotlight. To her, the only headline that mattered was the one her father would have written in his heart: "My daughter flew." And so the legend of row 17 lived on. Not as a fairy tale, but as proof that courage knows no age, that heroes sometimes sit quietly among us until destiny calls them forward. And that, my friends, is how silence at 30,000 feet turned into the loudest story of courage the world had ever heard. If this story gave you goosebumps, make sure to subscribe, because we share more incredible stories of ordinary people who became extraordinary when it mattered most.